All right, YouTube. It's Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. Back with another video on this Tuesday. I guess we all seen Inaugural Day. Those who didn't watch it, who boycotted, didn't want to see it. They still got a new president. Now, what I want to talk about is an interesting story that none of the left is talking about. Now, we know that Joe Biden did all those pardons, had been pardoning people, had even been pardoning his own family members, blanket pardons with indefinite limitations, like the 10 years. But he pardoned everybody. But he forgot some people. It seems he forgot the black people from the black community, the black liberals. Seems like he forgot Letitia James. Seems like he forgot Fannie Willis. Seems like he forgot Alvin Bragg. They was going to go at Mayor Adams until he switched lanes and got down with Trump. But we're going to talk today about the story of Marilyn Mosby. Today I want to talk about Marilyn Mosby. Angela Rye over there at the Native podcast, she was crying and begging Biden to give her a pardon, and he wouldn't. And all of a sudden, he went out the door pardoning everybody but them. And they won't say nothing. They mad and they boycotting Trump. The level of betrayal in the Democratic Party is enough to make you never want to say you're a liberal. Look how they do them on the left. Look how quickly they turn and cleave to their own. Now nobody's talking about Marilyn Mosby. Well, let's take a look at this story. This is for fair usage under the 1976 Copyright Act for education and commentary. Check out this.
On the day of her election, she was the youngest chief prosecutor of any major city in America. But over the past few months, Marilyn Mosby has found herself on the other side of the courtroom as a defendant. After being found guilty in 2 separate federal trials, she's now facing up to 40 years in prison. As the clock ticks down to her sentencing on Thursday, she is still fighting for her freedom. ABC's Janae Norman spoke with Mosby and her attorney.
Justice is always worth the price paid for its pursuit. Always. Always.
Marilyn Mosby, once Baltimore's top prosecutor, is awaiting sentencing for convictions that carry the possibility of decades in prison. Mosby and her attorney, Angela Rye, painting it as political retaliation.
What I would say first is that Marilyn is not the...
Oh, that's something I didn't even know. I didn't know Angela Rye was her actual attorney. No wonder she been crying and begging for Joe Biden to pardon this lady. She has a personal interest and a professional interest in her. But why are they not screaming on Joe Biden now? Why are they not talking about what's the betrayal in their own camp? Why they condemn Snoop Dogg and Nelly and anybody who went and participate in the inauguration of Trump? Now let's do some more of this.
Only one, she's the latest one. And it is remarkably egregious. Black women prosecutors, progressive prosecutors in this country have been overwhelmingly targeted. And then Donald Trump himself, who said when he was running for office that she should prosecute herself. Bill Barr, who was his attorney general, saying that there are cities like Baltimore, and he named others, that he was specifically looking at. It was by design from the very beginning a witch hunt.
Though the investigation was completed since President Biden took office, the inquiry into Mosby started under Donald Trump's presidency. Mosby rose to public prominence in 2015 with the case of Freddie Gray, seen here being arrested. He suffered a fatal spinal injury while in police custody.
That boy leg look gross!
In the midst of the unrest, Mosby moving to charge the 6 officers involved.
No one is above the law. I was one of the first prosecutors in this country to attempt to hold police officers accountable for the death of a Black man. That exposure ultimately led to reform, right? Not just in the state, in the city of Baltimore and statewide, but nationally.
The prosecution couldn't secure convictions for 4 of the officers and decided in 2016 to drop all the charges.
Tell me about your proudest moments in your role as state's attorney.
My office successfully convicted 33 police officers after Freddie Gray, those individuals that were violating the rights of citizens in Baltimore City. My office created the first conviction integrity unit in the entire state of Maryland, where we did reinvestigations into claims of actual innocence. We exonerated 13 innocent Black men that collectively served 300 years in prison for crimes they didn't commit. And so to now be in a position where I'm facing the same sobering reality as each of those individuals it's incredibly disheartening.
Across two separate trials, federal prosecutors sought to prove she falsified documents. First, to withdraw money from her retirement account early, and then to purchase two homes in Florida. The first trial in November of last year was on two charges of perjury connected to those two retirement account withdrawals in 2020, both done using a provision of the CARES Act, the Congressional COVID Relief Package, one withdrawal for $40,000 and the other for $50,000.
This is not PPP loans. This is not COVID relief funding. This is me being advised and with having access, taking out my own money, the money that I put away every 2 weeks.
The prosecution accused her of lying about having a financial hardship on her request form, saying she aimed to take advantage of the law meant to give favorable tax treatment to people struggling during the height of the pandemic. They presented evidence at trial that showed she made about $9,000 more in 2020 than 2019.
Are you saying that the actions for which you were convicted, you're not saying that you didn't do those or that didn't happen? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, I think that what we're saying is that it was not perjury to say that she experienced an adverse financial consequence due to COVID. She called to ask the administrator of the Baltimore Deferred Compensation Plan if she qualified twice, right?
Nationwide, yes.
So if you call and you're told that an adverse financial consequence,
which hasn't been legally defined,
and so obviously experienced an adverse financial consequence, I think what is so remarkable to me, again, I keep using that word, is how do they know how Marilyn was impacted by COVID? She is, making decent money as a Baltimore City State's attorney. There are people who she's responsible for. None of us knew. Like, if people could remember what was happening during COVID, none of us knew what was next. We were all experiencing adverse financial consequences.
The jury found Mosby guilty on both counts. Mosby says she used the money from her retirement account to close on two homes in Florida, an 8-bedroom house in Kissimmee, Florida, near Disney World, and a condo in Longboat Key on the Gulf Coast. Prosecutors presenting evidence at trial accusing Mosby of falsely stating in a letter to the lender that she'd received an outstanding $5,000 as a gift from her then husband, Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby. In reality, they say she transferred those $5,000 to him, and then he transferred it back. The gift letter is the only accusation the jury convicted Mosby on in the mortgage fraud trial.
The thing here is that they almost make it seem like wiring money between spouses is money laundering.
One thing that critics online are saying, they're like, wait, this 40 years, you're not actually facing 40 years. Yes, that is possible, but it's highly unlikely. Prosecutors are asking for 20 months. But you're saying even more than the jail time, that not only has the personal effects on Marilyn, but it sends a message.
It sends a major message. And I think the other thing that we have to keep in mind is the type of crime. This gets right to the heart of.
Now, I'm gonna say this, and they probably not gonna like this, but she is a DA. She prosecutes people. She would have to know that misrepresenting herself, getting the funds from the pandemic, was gonna be a problem when she was working every day, and she was buying a luxurious home. What people are going through hardship and at the same time buying luxurious homes, misrepresenting themselves in their transactions as a DA, and don't know none of the things about what they're doing is wrong. Well, let's look back into it.
Her integrity, her honesty, and her character.
The investigation was extremely expansive. They combed my taxes. They went through my campaign contributions. They were looking at my charitable donations. They were knocking on neighbors' doors at 5 a.m. to interrogate my hairdresser, my children's dance instructors. They sent subpoenas to all of the Black churches a few months before my election, all to create an environment in which I would be isolated and villainized in the media. And ultimately, I lost my election as a result of it.
She says her 2022 indictment has taken a toll on her personal life, including her marriage. She and her husband, now divorced, and she says she worries about the impact her going to prison would have on their 2 teenage daughters.
They've done this intentionally to break me. To break me psychologically, spiritually, professionally. I lost my election. Financially, I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars trying to defend myself against these ridiculous accusations. I lost my marriage as a result of this. He's a public servant.
Let me interject. All of this is under the Biden administration, where Black women are the backbone of their party and all that. This is where this is going on at. So let's get the time frame together.
And just recently losing his election.
ABC News reached out to the Department of Justice for comment, but officials declined. Though they have said in court filings, Ms. Mosby was charged and convicted because she chose to repeatedly break the law, not because of her politics or policies. She's now seeking a pardon from President Biden, fearing a conviction could lead to the Bar Association taking away her license to practice law.
The pardon is because it erases the slate. It will come in to correct an injustice.
So what does life look like for you Friday and beyond?
Friday, and I'll say, based off of my faith, I know that God will have the final say. And my hope is that I will walk out of that courthouse and be able to start my life again, rebuild my life with my little girls.
Our thanks to Janae for bringing us that conversation.
Now, of course, she was found guilty. Didn't get the pardon. Joe Biden, it looks to me, out of all those people he pardoned, I don't see that he pardoned any Black liberals that's on the front line that were opponents of Trump. Like I stated before, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, Bragg, Chicago Mary, definitely all those cities where they have immigrants and was getting funding. But I want you to see what Demetri K has to say about this. Check this out.
What's new? Government picture look, you stupid. So hello everybody, it is me, Demetri K, and I hope you're having a great day. Of course, I am here in Texas, Houston to be exact, and we are supposed to be experiencing record-breaking, I guess, snowfall tonight and in the morning. So it's supposed to be, I guess pretty brutal for Houston, I guess. So we're all kind of bracing for that, but I won't be before you long. I like to say the purpose of the Demetri K Show is to promote Black love, knowledge, and understanding of all things that go on in the Black community to make us an even better people, with the emphasis on even, because we're great people, but we can always strive to do better. Like I said, big giant thank you, hello, and welcome to YouTube and Facebook. You are the other side of the conversation. I won't be sharing the link today because I am by myself, but we will be back here tomorrow. When I say we, I mean Donovan and I. Of course, you guys know the inauguration was today, the inauguration of Donald Trump, who is the 47th president, was the 45th. Now he's the 47th, and all of that. I watched the whole thing. And so I found myself laughing. But again, I won't get too much into it today. We'll wait till tomorrow when Donovan is here. But I did take a copious amount of notes, if you will. And so all that is going to be going on today. Also, today is what they call Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's not his birthday. It's actually the 15th, but today it's being celebrated. In addition to that, again, of the inauguration, which kind of seems like it was very contentious for a lot of reasons, but of course, we'll get into that as well. But today I want to spend some time talking about while those 92% were trolling Snoop, Biden, that is former President Joe Biden, left office without pardoning Marilyn Mosby. And of course, I will get into who she is. I'm sure a lot of you guys know who she is already, but if you don't, I will definitely get into that. So who is here before I get started? Before I get started, I'm going to play a video in homage to Martin Luther King. It's a short one, but it's going to be a short snippet from that of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that's going to be in just a second. Extreme, how you doing? Says if Trump gets her pardon, you know what? I said the same thing. They're going to mess around. I don't know if Trump will, but wouldn't that be something if he did? Biden left and didn't pardon Marilyn Mosby. Belinda, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Beauty Land, what is going on? I'm going to tell you in just a second. And how you doing? And Brother Don, my triple OG moderator, how you doing? Dana, what's going on with you? Bobby Wright, how are you? Belinda says, I watch it too on my phone at work. Arneva, I hope you're doing well. Extreme X says, I know, right? So much for the backbone of the Democratic Party. Ooh, you stole my talking points, but you know I'm going to get into it. Hey, Brother Clifford, Donovan, what is going on? Your petition will never, when I say never, it'll never work. But good luck. DJ Milk, how you doing? And Buck Horse, you are here early. All right, so let's get into it. For the sake of time. So again, as you guys know, it is MLK Day, where the country, and I guess maybe some parts of the world, celebrate that of Martin Luther King Jr., who was indeed a revolutionary, who, as many say, had a dream, but I think we've kind of turned it into a nightmare. Anyway, I digress. I want to play this video. It's a short one of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaking about Martin Luther King, and then we'll get on with the subject at hand. So here we go.
Being in the military, for us, the franchise model made a lot of sense.
When we started this, we had forts.
And Dr. King,
you know, kind of piggyback off of that before we get into it. Yes, there's a lot of people that's talking Martin Luther King Jr., but they're not walking it. And as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, we've allowed them to name streets and boulevards after him, and that was it, right? Like, we think that's really something. But he also said there that people often go with, oh, you know, he had a dream. And of course, they go on with the same old talking points. But he said, well, Martin Luther King Jr. was a revolutionary. He basically, for, you know, lack of a better word, he wasn't no punk. That, you know, history and a lot of y'all, not y'all here, but them over there, have made him into, right? Now, of course, a lot recently, we heard a lot of dust up because Trump was inaugurated on MLK Day, again, not his birthday. Trump didn't have anything to do with that. It just so happens that MLK Day fell on Inauguration Day, right? So, of course, a lot of people said, I'm not going to watch. I'm going to go honor Martin Luther King. And when I see people saying that, I'm like, well, how? How are you going to honor him? You just going to say you did? Like, what are you doing? And when I say you, I mean me as well. What are we doing to actually show that we are putting boots to the ground and doing the things that he's doing? Because nowadays we hear about people boycotting stuff, you know, like Snoop and them. And they boycotting because they feelings got hurt because they exercised their democracy. But when Martin Luther King Jr. and them was boycotting, they was boycotting for real. They didn't have no too many, you know, emotions and personal feelings. They was like, nah, we got to move the ball for our people, right? But nowadays, people loosely use Martin Luther King Jr., you know, just so that, I don't know, maybe it's fashionable now. And especially a lot of people who look like us, we think all we have to do is invoke the name of Martin Luther King Jr. and all of a sudden we did something. You ain't do nothing. You ain't do nothing. All you did was bump your gums and your thumbs, but you ain't do nothing. So I agree with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yeah, streets and boulevards and stuff like that is cool, but that's not what he was asking. He was asking, and in fact, when Martin Luther King Jr. died, right before he died, he was going to Washington to get our check. But a lot of y'all that use Martin Luther King Jr., y'all doing it to get some get back on people. Talk about, Martin Luther King Day. What about Martin Luther King Day? It's a day. You honor him on one day, but what about the rest of the year? So I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, All right, so some of y'all are like, who is Marilyn Mosby? Of course, y'all saw her on the thumbnail. But Marilyn Mosby was a former state attorney for Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, rather. She gained national attention when she prosecuted the police officers that were involved in Freddie Gray's death. Of course, Freddie Gray was a young black man who was put in the back of a van. Police officers were messing with them, and they drove around the city with him not seatbelted down but handcuffed. And when they got him out of there, he had broken vertebrae and a whole host of other things, and he died from those injuries. Well, Marilyn Mosby was like, well, I'm going to go after you. Of course, they got off, for lack of better words. They never really were brought up on to trial, if I'm not mistaken. So nevertheless, we'll get back into that. Now in 2023-24, Marilyn was convicted of perjury, and basically she filed financial hardship during COVID-19, basically saying that she needed to draw out, which she did, $90,000 from her 401k, but this prosecutors are more or less like, well, you were still working. You're fully working, fully, drawing the paycheck, so you weren't having any hardship. And it sounded like, as the state attorney, she was making quite a bit of money. Now, she also got convicted on mortgage fraud, making false statements on mortgage application to purchase 2 Florida homes, or I think they were kind of like rental properties, if I'm not mistaken. Now, she also misrepresented a $5,000 gift that she got from her husband in order to get a lower interest rate, okay? Now, in May 2024, she was sentenced to 12 months home confinement and 100 hours of community service, and sentenced to supervised release. So basically probation, right? Which has to check in and all that. Now, of course, many people feel like that happened to Marilyn. Basically, it was some get back, right? It was get back for what she was trying to do with the officers in the Freddie Gray incident. She tried to hold them accountable, and many didn't like that. So they felt like that's why the state, I guess, whoever it was, went after her. Sounds like it was a DOJ or somebody. Don't quote me. Nevertheless, it also sounds like she was the first person in history for that particular thing to happen to. So again, people feel like it was some get back. Now, in all fairness, there were a lot of people who were asking for Biden, hey, pardon Marilyn Mosby, right? Because he pardoned a whole lot of other people. And in fact, they say he pardoned about 1,500 people that were on home confinement, due to COVID and all that other stuff. So they're like, hey, what about Marilyn? Come on. And of course, today he left and he did not do that. So yeah, there was some, like I would, say Angela Rye and, her crew and things like that. They were vehemently trying to get the attention of the president to get her pardon, and he didn't do that. Now, of course, a pardon is basically a forgiveness for crime. It depends on what type of pardon it is. But in her case, they wanted her to get a total pardon. So having her free of any consequences. So basically not being home confined anymore, not being on probation, any of that other stuff, and getting rid of the felony, right? Because she had a lot of things taken from her. So that didn't happen. But my problem is this. My problem is 92%, and y'all know who I'm talking about. For those of y'all who are like, who's the 92%? That's Black women who run around here with their faces all screwed up because Kamala Harris did not win the presidency, right? That's what they've called themselves, the 92%, the backbone of the Democratic Party. You ran around the internet for 4 days. For 4 days, trolling Snoop, Nelly, Soulja Boy, and Rick Ross. And some lady came on here and said Ross. I'm like, nah, lady, we ain't talking about Ross dressed for less. We ain't talking about Snoopy from the Peanuts. You know what I'm saying? We ain't talking about Nelly from what's that show back in the day? The Prairie Show, whatever. We ain't talking about them, okay? But y'all ran around there, Little House on the Prairie. Y'all ran around trolling them while your homegirl was waiting for Biden to partner. Now I'm gonna say this, okay? See, I ain't fake. I've made a few videos saying that I believe that Marilyn Mosby got a raw deal. I believe they targeted Marilyn Mosby. Y'all can go check my resume. Look at the African Diaspora News channel. I made a video or 2. I believe that they did that to her. And I believe that she should have gotten a pardon. But as I said, you 92%ers, you faking and you fronting and you messing with Snoop. But yet your homegirl is still locked down in her house. I mean, I guess she could have went to prison, right? But she didn't. But she locked down in her house, and Biden got on the little helicopter, right? The Marine little helicopter, and then got on Air Force One, and he flew off to California, go to vacation. Kamala, Angela Wright talking about that's her homegirl. She used her whole government name when she talking about her, Kamala Davi Harris. We're not going to blame Kamala. Kamala didn't have no pull with Biden. Hey, Biden, you let it. And he just pardoned Dr. Fauci today. He pardoned a whole bunch of his, family members, his brothers, all kind of stuff, right? And Kamala didn't have no pull. Say, hey, come on, man. Do this solid for me. Do this solid for the 92% that showed up and they showed out. They were strolling to the polls and, all this stuff. Do a solid for me. Come on, get pardon my homegirl, Marilyn. He didn't do it. He pardoned them judges that was at the cash for kids for cash scheme that was selling those kids up the river to like prison and stuff. He pardoned them, a whole host of people, but not Marilyn Mosby, who indeed I don't think she did anything wrong, right? She got the wrong money. It wasn't like she stole the money. I mean, come on now. I ain't never did it, but I know that ain't nothing new. Many people get a little money here and there and say, okay, here, bet I need to put a down payment, right? But they went after her. In fact, I think they was looking at trying to give her 10 years or so for that, or longer. I think maybe like 30 years they was trying to give her for that. Again, I believe it was retribution for her going after the police officers in the Freddie Gray case. But right there, so two things. 92%, you a phony and you a fraud. You don't care about black women because while that black woman was waiting for y'all to, boots on the ground, y'all was going after Snoop.
If you don't know, when she say 92%, she's talking about the 92% of so-called black women who voted for Kamala and Biden, and Kamala and Wallace, Tampon Tim. He said 92% of y'all were stumped down loyal to the Democratic Party.
Thing is, guess you ain't the backbone of the Democratic Party after all, huh? I guess Kamala and Biden really don't love you like you think you did. And from what I understand, they mad at Ketanji Brown Jackson. From what my daughter was telling me, they're mad because Ketanji Brown Jackson, she went along with the TikTok ban. Y'all know it was unanimous, right? So she too said that it needed to be banned. Now, a lot of the people on TikTok are like, wait a minute, homegirl. It was because of us, talking about you and Ketanji Brown Jackson, all this other stuff that, you probably got confirmed. And then you're going to go against it? So what? The 92%, I'm not talking about the 8% of the brothers, that's another day. But what it showed you is that, oh, you just like the rest of us. They don't care about you either. They couldn't do you that one favor. Y'all remember 4 years ago?
Shout out to Demetri K. But the point that I'm trying to show you is twofold, because in mainstream media, legacy media, they're not even talking about Marilyn Mosby in front of Biden and all these pardons. He pardoned his whole family, but you have heard no reaching out to, like I told you, Letitia James, the #1 attack dogs that they sent at Trump and conservatives who had blackface, loyal to the Democratic Party. They didn't pardon any of them. That's just something to think about going into the future. So this is Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. Support the channel. As always, salute to all patriots. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace. Hey, it's cold in Detroit, but not as cold as those Democrats.